All right, so now we've got some real work here, and by real work I mean a piece of a project. And that project that I have marked out there is marked off of this template, which was also cut with a jigsaw and then cleaned up a lot with rasps and sandpaper and files, which we're going to talk about in another section of this video. And what this is a pattern which you use for what's called pattern routing, and we'll be talking about routers and how to do that in another segment later. Upshot is you're going to end up with the end of your table like this. But before you can pattern route, you have to cut just outside your lines. So this is a good opportunity for me to do that and show you how to properly use a jigsaw. So you always want to mark a line where you want to cut. And you want to cut to one side of that line, and that side is the waist side. So this is the part I'm keeping. This is my waist. And this is my waist too, but obviously I'll have to flip it around before I can cut that. The less waist you leave, the less you have to clean up later with your files, your rasps, your sandpaper. Now if you're pattern routing, it's a different thing. You want to leave just enough for the router bit to grab it. But upshot is, no matter what you're doing, cut as close to the line as possible without going over, and leave your waist. So you want to shoot for about a 32nd of waist when you get really good, maybe even less when you get really good. I don't think I'm that good, especially not with the camera on, but we'll give it a shot. So this is a two-handed tool. One hand grabs the body and the trigger. I am plugged in, good. Grabs the body and the trigger. The other hand, I'm right-handed predominantly, so I'm going to use my left hand, my off hand, to hold the base plate down to my work and to press it into the cut so that I don't move off my line. The trigger hand supplies the forward motion and the heavy steering. It also adjusts the speed. This is a variable speed trigger, which almost all jigsaws have now. So if I press it a lot, it goes fast, and you can hear that. You can hear the difference depending on how much I depress the trigger. So if you are making a curve, you want to slow down in your cut, you just let go of the trigger a little bit. If you're on a straight line cut and you want to speed up, you can do that by depressing the trigger more. Again, your offhand is going to provide the small adjustments that are going to help stay on line. Your thumb is also going to keep the saw as it presses down to the work from jumping up and down in the cut, which you can absolutely do if you're trying to make too strong of a cut or too strong of a curve and you haven't cut a relief cut. And relief cuts, that's something we need to talk about too. That's a cut that you make into the waist area that allows you to remove your waist one chunk at a time. So I'm going to start with my blade off the work. And as I move into the cut, I'm using this finger to make minor adjustments as I go along my curve here. When I can get my whole hand onto the board, I'll be using this finger pressed up against the shoe in the same way. And that's why you have a relief cut, so that the waist falls away. Now I didn't get quite as close as I would have liked here. Probably moved a little too quickly. I'm going to slow down on the other side of this cut, which I'll want to come in from on the other direction, and maybe I can get a little bit closer. Now this isn't a big deal. It's, you know, 1/8 of an inch. I'd like to have less cleanup work to do. We're using a rasp and a file to clean this curve up. But I have a nice clean curve, and that's good. If you have a lot of stopping and starting, you get kind of a rough cut here. You want to try as much as possible to move through the entire cut without stopping in the middle of it. And I don't want to turn my back on the camera, so I'm going to go ahead and make this cut now. And I'll come back and make the other ones off camera.